Let's talk Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We got some great Bucs news for you. Look, this time of year, we're trying to evaluate what players, as we get closer to training camp, are ready to come out of the woodwork and surprise to the upside. Whether they're young players getting ready to break out, whether they're new additions feeling their oats, whether they're potential steals adding into this roster and are going to surprise everyone, having a big impact where none was expected. And it looks like the Buccaneers have secured the third option in a massive steal. Let's get into this report, and we'll talk about it more in detail on the other side. This is courtesy of Athlon Sports. The Bucs secured several undrafted players to compete through the offseason programs, but one of those experimental pieces has turned a bit of unexpected momentum through Tampa Bay's OTAs heading into training camp in July. ESPN's Jenna Lane pointed to cornerback Tyreek Thunderberg as a surprise name out of Bucs minicamp, a great name too, not just a surprise name. Lane noted that he picked off Kyle Trask on the first day of mandatory minicamp and dropped a second interception on day 2 off of John Wolford. While those flashes came against reserve units, his efforts caught the eye of Tampa Bay head coach Todd Bowles, who said he's a guy that's flash out of pads, Bowles said, of the undrafted corner. All right, look, this is obviously an area, position of need in terms of depth in the secondary for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll explain why, but of course, Thunderberg coming out of nowhere is a great sign for Tampa, irregardless. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, but first, Bucs fans, in the comment section below, talking DBs, talking corners, talking safeties, who is your favorite Tampa Bay Bucs DB in team history? There's a lot of great names on this list. Frankly, anyone who played on that 2002 team probably deserves a top spot, but you can only pick one. Give us your favorite Bucs DB and put them in the comment section below. And while you're down there in the comment section below, make sure you check out the description box where we've got a list of our recommended reading of football books. So that way you can be the smartest person in the comment section below. Got a bunch of different books down there, from autobiographies, from deep dives to the game. Make sure you check it out as well. But Miles, let me throw it over to you now. What are your thoughts on this latest Bucs news?
Yeah, Nick, as for me, my favorite Bucks DB gotta be D Delaney. I think he was one of the good ones for the Bucks. But talk about necessarily D Delaney, talk about guys who come from small schools, a little bit under the radar. Reminds me a lot of what we have here with Thunderberg. And with the absence of Delaney going to Buffalo, I think this Buccaneers secondary, I think the back end is very, very strong. Obviously, Antoine Winfield Jr. is incredible. Then Whitehead on the other side, he's a pretty good player as well. I think he's a good addition. But in that cornerback group, if you look, the 3 starting corners, if you count the slot cornerback, the 2 outside cornerbacks, I think there is room for improvement, especially McCollum. He really hasn't had very many good years. 2 years, a 46 PFF grade and a 50 PFF grade. Not very good. So I think anytime you can find a guy from a small school who's really trying to cut his teeth, get into the NFL, and he just wants to make it. He wants to get there, and he's really starting to impress. I think guys like that are perfect fits, especially for teams like the Bucs, who I think are severely underrated. I think this Bucs teams, you got Baker Mayfield now, you got Mike Evans and Godwin still, and I just think this is a team that really, really has a lot of good stuff going on the offensive side of the ball, and people don't think about their defensive side of the ball enough as well, because it is pretty stacked. Like I said, Antoine Winfield Jr. is a very good player. Vita Vea, another great guy at defensive tackle. Ryan Shayanka is really coming up. We like Cansey and Diaby. We did a couple of film reviews on them as well. But in that secondary, like I said, that's where they need help. And we've seen a lot of young guys come up through the ranks on this defensive side of the ball for the Bucs and really start to stand out. So anyone Bowles comes out and says, hey, I think that, Thunderberg, he's really been showing some flashes. He's shown some good stuff on tape. I think this is going to be good for Bucs, because this is a defense where I think young players can shine and they get to cut their teeth very early on. Like I said, last year with Cansey and Diaby, we saw them be able to come out really early, get some quality playing time, and make something of themselves. I think Thunderberg potentially has another opportunity like that here for the Bucs, and I really am excited to see what he does. He's gonna have to show a little bit more. We're gonna have to see him through mini camps. We're gonna have to see him through OTAs. We're gonna have to see what he can do the preseason. But I think there's an opportunity for him to potentially move himself into the starting lineup.
There absolutely is a huge opportunity, because if you look at this secondary, specifically the cornerback position, like you brought up, it is probably the biggest weakness on this football team that, again, won a playoff game last year, won their division last year, and they're going to be in a strong position to have a similar kind of run this year, even better. They just need some much needed depth at corner. If you go look at the PFF grades in terms of coverage grades in 2023, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers finished 19th, 1-9 in the NFL, a little bit below average, which is not great, but it's okay. But here is where the numbers actually are a little bit worse than that because of how good Antoine Winfield was, and because Jamal Dean's a really solid corner. If you remove those two, this is a bottom 5, bottom 4 coverage team in the National Football League. They were not getting it done in the secondary outside of those two guys. They need help at the cornerback position. And look, you got to take it however you can get it, right? Whether it's an undrafted free agent, whether it's a veteran stepping up, whatever it may be. If you've got a guy who can play in Bulls knows defense, Bulls knows the back end better than just about anybody in the National Football League. If you got a guy who can step up and be your number 3, number 4 corner, playing a lot of special teams, even if he's an undrafted guy from a smaller school, Sunbelt school, listen, you take that because Thunderberg has all of the athletic tools. He's actually a little bit of steal. The fact that he went undrafted, NFL.com had him rated as like a 6th, 7th round pick. That's where they were projecting him. So there's some value there that the Bucs picked up as well. But if you look at the grades in terms of his strengths on NFL.com, talks about a guy who's got an athletic profile and instincts to play inside and outside, willing run supporter that loves to punish pass catchers. You know he's physical. He's a route jumper with tools to flip the fields with takeaways, right? He's a guy that sounds like a player. Most of his negatives are technical. Like, his technique needs to get a little bit better, needs to improve his fundamentals here and there. Who better to teach him that than Todd Bowles and his defensive coaching staff? So it's not just a value addition at a position of need for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's a great fit in terms of the Bucs' strengths, perfectly aligned with Thunderberg's weaknesses. The fact that he's shown out, has done a good job so far through mini camps and OTAs is a great sign, and I'm expecting a lot more out of this kid as we get into training camp.